Spoilerin time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tom Merritt. We're going to spoil episode 8 of season 6 of The Shield, episode 1 of the movie The Ant-Man, and True Detective, episode 5 of season 2. But we will start, as always, by greeting Brian Brushwood with our traditional Spoilerin time greeting. Hello.
Hello, Tom. And a good cord killing to you too, sir. We also have with us, for as long as we can keep him, Andrew Main. But first, we've got to jump in and find out about the movie draft. All right.
Brian Brushwood, against all odds, with the help of Marvel Studios, DTNS has lost the movie draft.
I can't believe it, man. What did you need Ant-Man to do opening weekend? Maybe it's got legs, 6 of them, so to speak.
We probably need Ant-Man to hit 200 million, and people are saying Ant-Man's a flop. It's not a flop. At 58 million, this is an off property for Marvel. That's great. They didn't spend as much on this one either, apparently. So 58 million is awesome for Marvel. We needed it to be like 80 million, I think.
Gosh, I cannot believe that Cordkillers is just going to run away with it. That's so amazing.
It's Jurassic World. Jenny and I were working the numbers and talking about it earlier today. Jurassic World doesn't make 611 million. This is still a definite fight, right?
And I do think that, if we can remember, without hindsight being 2020, Jurassic World vastly overperformed any of our expectations. And that, to me, is a time I don't mind losing, is when somebody picks something and they bet hard on it, right? Like, what did they spend on Jurassic World? It was a big chunk of their
42.
money.
They spent 42 on Minions and 42 on Jurassic World.
I mean, that's unreal. That's they went entirely with just the chocolate and vanilla. We'll take one of each. And they mixed it together. And again, the trend continues that that chat realm. We have a single chat realmer in very first place with the equally brilliant, Furious 7, Pitch Perfect 2, and Jurassic World. That's insane, man. The draft never ceases to amaze me with how dumb we all are.
Expect Universal to put more money into an ad campaign, so Jurassic World will pass Titanic. They're within 40 million domestically of Titanic.
Oh, wow.
And they will probably do everything they can so they can take that crown of the highest grossing domestic that's
Why
not
don't
Avatar.
you like me? That's what I want to say to them.
Yeah. They're at the point where they're willing to blow money.
Cordkillers are going to win the movie draft. Let's pour more money into Jurassic World so the Cordkillers will just stomp everyone in the movie draft.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody's worried about the Marvel, but the fact that Jurassic Park is going to beat Avengers, Jurassic World rather, going to beat Avengers is just
it's huge.
The crossovers. Yeah, no, I mean, this is the thing. It's the movie draft would be easy if you knew how much the movies were going to make, right? We all pretend like, we know that was going to make around 300 million, because you could just do the math and be like, well, you spend this much per dollar for the dollar you're going to get, and you win. And that's what everybody thought we had done with DTNS, is that we outbid everyone, cleverly getting on a massive pile of movies that couldn't help but outgross everybody else based on what we thought they would get. But Jurassic World, totally a surprise. And Minions overperformed. It's not a shocker, but it did better than expected even.
IO9 had their, which movie do you think is going to be the biggest bomb of the summer? And their headline image was a scene from Jurassic World. And not to say that they were saying that was going to be the biggest bomb, but the idea, if you're going to say what's going to be the biggest bomb, what's going to be this year's biggest flop, they're like, well, maybe this one.
The only hope that we have at all, and it's not much of one, is that either Vacation, or probably both Vacation and Mission Impossible, overperform. And Mission Impossible would be the only real hope. It would have to way overperform.
Fantastic Four might pull a Mad Max Fury Road because everyone's very skeptical of it. Fantastic Four.
I hear buzz around Mission Impossible. I hear no buzz around Fantastic Four.
Yes. Well, yeah. All right.
Yeah, I mean, the buzz going into Mad Max months out, a year out from that, I was hearing people who'd seen just rough screenings of it saying how great this was. Haven't heard anything from Fantastic Four. I
had heard that that the early cuts of Mad Max were really bad. And it got saved in edits.
Tell me more.
Why?
Tell me more about how Fantastic Four might make
might make that turnaround. You don't know.
Well, it's like I'm reading one of the William Goldman books, and he's talking about how, like, the quote is like, everybody, Dances with Wolves was a terrible movie until people saw it.
Yeah.
And so until we see it, we don't know. And you look at on Rotten Tomatoes, you watch Ant-Man, or was it like started off, the first reviews came up was like 67, 68, and now it's around a 79 or an 80. For a comic book movie, that's great, and particularly with people having so much, well, Edgar Wright, if he got to do his version, Yeah.
Here's the only way we win. Mission Impossible makes $300 million. Fantastic Four makes $200 million, and Vacation doesn't tank.
That seems unlikely.
It does. Sure does.
Yeah, well,
right,
and I believe, Team Night Attack is pretty much locked up, dead last.
Right. You know what? We are. In my weeping over my own fate, we should mention that this week is Paper Towns, guy from Queen's last movie, and he's actually in third. Paper Towns could pull off A Fault in Our Stars and get him into second. I don't think he's going to get into first.
But even hitting seconds surprises me. I mean, and again, we couldn't believe how cheaply Team Amtrekker was able to get Age of Ultron, but we'll see.
And Pixels comes out. Does anyone think this looks good?
No. I said anyway.
That's Team Frog Pants. Pixels. Sorry, Team Frog Pants.
So, one thing to start putting in the back of our mind is how we're going to handle the winter movie draft, given the 800 million elephant in the room of Star Wars. Whether we divide it up or allow, do shares or what. You say let it go as is.
Look, I think what we proved this summer is that you don't really know what's going to happen. You don't really know what the hit is. And so I would hate to see us like change the rules for one movie and then have that actually make it even weirder or worse somehow or cause more questions because you're like, well, if we'd done it the other way, this person could have won.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Look, the reason, Hollywood Stock Exchange is a game that makes it tedious and makes it feel like a job. The simplicity of the way we do it seems to have resonated. I am hesitant to change anything as well. But then
the question is, if you buy Star Wars for $100, will you guarantee yourself a win?
I think you will.
Yes.
Is the problem.
I mean, there is no other movie in history have you had a studio that's this set behind making sure that it's a success. They're going to do, when it gets closer to it, follow the ad buys. You're going to see if they're at the least bit worried what they're going to be spending to make sure that every butt is in that seat, because they now know they got to beat Jurassic World.
So,
you know what the key is? The key is how many other teams there are. Because
we could
because the point is like, okay, Star Wars makes $800 million, but I have 5 movies that make $200 million. Now I've beaten Star Wars, right? And the thing that can prevent you from doing that is you just can't get enough movies because there's too many other people bidding. If there's only one other person in the draft to get somebody who's Star Wars, they can't win by buying Star Wars.
So
right?
all we need to do is inject some way to keep it from being a race to just who says 100 first, like
maybe a random draft.
No, you know what? Actually,
simple.
Actually, that does fix it, because if we pick the order of them, then you have the strategy of, granted, if Star Wars happens to come up first, then be that guy who shouts 100 first, and you got it. But if it's late in the draft, then all of a sudden it messes up how you're playing everything else, and it's like, how much money do I want to hold on to in order to buy Star Wars when it comes up?
The one rule that I might entertain is that we just decide Star Wars is going to go for 100, and we get it out of the way first, and say who is willing to bid 100 for Star Wars. Put your name into the hat, and we pull that name out.
Then that truly is random, no skill victory. If that person, if all 6 of us go in, I like this idea. I think the random drawing solves it, because if you, then you have to decide, I am not going to spend a single dime on anything. I'm going to wait until I hear Star Wars. And then meanwhile, everyone else is getting bargain. And maybe all of a sudden someone does have a slate because, like, let's say 3 people are all like Star Wars or bust. And so then meanwhile, you have everyone else cleaning up and then possibly having a slate that'll beat Star Wars.
Have you looked at the release slate coming up for that?
For that, the entire winter?
Yeah, I mean, people have been kind of keeping clear of...
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I think you just get Star Wars out of the way. You draft everything else with everyone else who's left, and you limit the number. We have fewer people participating so that you have a chance to actually build up enough movies to outdraw Star Wars.
And that's also one of the classic difficulties with the winter draft is the pie is just smaller, and it's harder to pick blockbusters during that time. So maybe making
and it's
it
still
just
skilled because if everyone says, you know what, I'm not going to bid 100 on Star Wars, then it goes into the regular bidding process.
Wouldn't bid 100 on Star Wars.
What's going on?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Who wouldn't? I mean, is this some sort of reverse psychology here?
I don't know. Okay.
No. I'm saying Brian's saying if we let someone draw Star Wars at 100, then it's a no skill victory. Well, first of all, we want to construct it so it's not a guaranteed victory to get it, and second of all, you could choose not to bid 100 on Star Wars because you think you have a better chance otherwise. So it's still a strategy.
What if we? Yeah, I don't know. There's ideas. We could play with them. We should move on. You want to talk about True Detective?
Detective, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Hey, man, how awesome is this second season? That's just as awesome as the first season.
Stop. Let's. Here's my proposal for this episode 5 of True Detective. Let's pretend none of the other episodes happened. This is an interesting pilot episode of True Detective. There's an essential mystery. I'm starting to understand how things are created. I'm glad I watched those webisodes that introduced me to the characters. I actually felt like this is the first episode of True Detective where I didn't have to read the recap to understand what happened. And I felt like, oh, now there's an actual mystery to solve. Now there's something to pay attention to.
I could not agree more. I think that is the best way to think about it. And through that lens, it's certainly my favorite of all the episodes. It had stakes. It was a little bit weird to go from that massive shootout, and they didn't really go out of their way to make it clear that 66 days had passed. They
have to be listening to the anchor on the TV in the background when she says 66 days from the massacre at Vinci. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I just happened to notice that. So.
Right. I'll tell you what. This is the best acting I've seen from Vince Vaughn and from Colin Farrell. I mean, this his complicated pain, that weird place he's in with his son, and the paternity and watching his marriage break down, I guess visitation rights break down. I'd say this is the first time an episode ended, and I was like, well, I have to see what happens next. I have to see the conversation between Colin Farrell and Vince Vaughn.
Andrew, what did you think?
I mean, I loved season 1, and it took me 3 or 4 episodes to get into season 1. It was just a bit out there. This latest episode, the webisodes we saw before, I kind of was a little bit fatigued on 2 people telling their deal. This is my deal in a room. This is my deal. This is your deal, and this is my deal. And Vaughn's kind of angsty. My dealing with my fatherhood. I'm going to try to make. I kind of feel like I keep getting the same story over and over and over again, and it's being repeated to me. And, the deal with, what's his name, Taylor Kitsch and his mom, it's kind of like, it felt like, I'm like, wow, like every scene, there's a photo of somebody in the background on the wall to remind us what this is about. She was a showgirl. Here's his son, his son by, with the Farrell. It's like, I'm worried. Because I saw how awesome the first season was and how it made me think that TV is like this is the greatest thing. I thought like True Detective, like the first season is like the greatest thing ever, and I don't want to hold this to that standard. But there certainly are things here, just the way the dialogue takes place,
it's too bad because like it's a cool, different setting than the first one, and it's a cool
setting.
You know, there are times that it's gorgeous to look at. But I just find myself like, wait, why are we here again? Who am I supposed to hate? I mean, I get that. It's got a little bit of that kind of Wire aspect to it, in that you see things from many different sides. But the problem with that is that you have the enemy in the first True Detective was the mysterious killer, right? You knew, even though you had no idea who this person was, you knew that there was genuine evil out there that needed to be taken down. I don't know who the genuine evil is in this. I know that there is a corrupt city official that died. That I guess we want to get the killer and randomly blow up a meth house with genuinely crappy CGI. That was like the worst.
I don't want to spoiling on your spoiler show, but there's a certain character that's always sort of looming that's like, well, I think I know who wore the mask and who was there and who's always sort of present and stuff. And that was kind of evidence like the first episode kind of thing, where I could be wrong, but I feel so far ahead of where this is. I'm sure to go twist and turn, but it was just, like, hey, maybe he's gay. Yeah, we got that. No, we're way ahead of that. We're way ahead of the curve on that. Doesn't get along with his mom. No, we know that.
Know he's gay. Oh, yeah. His mom knows he's gay. Oh, this episode, his mom's telling him. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It just, I feel like first season True Detective, for our first anthology True Detective, they did a really good job of like really weird murder with a mystery. And now we have another mystery of like, wait, there's an even weirder society behind this. And wait, what is that society protecting? They're protecting something else. And wow, that there is true evil behind all of this, right? And we kept peeling back the onion. This one seems like, okay, there's a corrupt town with a corrupt mayor and some investors who are spinning the game, and some of them have weird sex things. Like, until this episode, didn't even get a hint of any like layers of the onion or evil other than the guy with the mask on that in that one scene. This episode, finally, we got, okay, there's more going on behind the psychologist. There's arterial blood spray in a cabin, and we don't know whose blood it came from. We can guess, but we're finally getting mysteries.
Yeah. I'm definitely in for the rest of the ride, and
for sure.
It may pay off in a big, big way, but it feels a little bit like work. But that's fine. I can work for, something that eventually pays off.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I just I loved the first two because you had the characters between McConaughey and Harrelson. The dialogue between them and the interactions they were. Harrelson's character, I didn't like him at first, but then you found his humanity in him. In McConaughey, you sort of understood how he was trying to cope with this stuff. Here we have a bunch of different flawed people that we're not going to get there. Colin Farrell's character is kind of the most interesting to me. I think he's doing fantastic in it. And Vince Vaughn, I like Vince Vaughn, but it's just he keeps kind of making the same sort of. It feels like a David Mamet play, and I love David Mamet, but it kind of feels a little bit too much of that. This is what I am. This is what I am, and you don't even have to be in the room for me to have this conversation.
Yeah. Does it bum you out to think there are only 3 episodes left?
No. I mean, like, I think I'm ready for an action-packed.
That no was so much more layered than this season of True Detective.
I mean, it's like if those 3 episodes are a hint that we're about to get to the point, then great. That means we're very, very close to the point, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna get to the Andrew. Any last thoughts on True Detective before we move on?
I think if it started with the last episode, or started with episode 4, like, hey, that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah. Just start with the shootout.
I mean, start like at the hey, you're on the special task force. You're this. They make some sort of discovery, and then boom, in the first or second episode, have that kind of thing happen. because that just tells you how high the stakes are, everything else like that, and then kind of jump forward. I mean, that would have been kind of. I felt like, man, this is what we're going to get in the back three. Is we're just going to get a lot of people like, well, this was because of this and this, Columbo after the fact explaining everything to us instead of experiencing it.
Yeah.
Vince Vaughn doing one more thing.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think we're going to move into Ant-Man. So if you want to go bug off and do Ant-Man homework.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Get that bug off because he's Ant-Man.
You're my heroes. I love you all dearly.
Great job, man. It was awesome. Awesome having you on, and you're always welcome.
No, Brian, great job on Penn and Teller Fool Us.
Yeah, seriously.
You know what? You fooled me.
What? You fooled me into thinking that you're a decent magician.
You are my hero.
All right, get out of here. Go watch Ant-Man. Bye.
Does Andrew know that he's our hero?
I mean, did we ever tell him that
he's everything that we want
to be? I mean, it's because aside, like sometimes I feel like I could soar like an eagle.
Yeah, he's kind of the wind beneath my armpits.
Wow,
I don't have wings.
Right on.
That would just be silly. All right.
Oh wait, one more thing about True Detective. What's up with let's investigate this house? Carrion birds. Let's go into the trail. I mean, that seemed like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Speaking of a bit of a stretch, let's talk about Ant-Man, which I enjoyed, actually. I didn't expect much. And so when I sat down in the theater and got a little more than I expected, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought Paul Rudd was what I expected, like a comedic take, but able to be believed as this person thrust into the Ant-Man suit. I thought we got more Michael Douglas than I was expecting. I didn't think we'd get Hank Pym beyond sort of a I'm passing the torch kind of feeling, and he was essential to the plot all the way through. And I thought Evangeline Lilly kicked ass. Yeah,
I did not know that. In fact, I hadn't looked into it, so I hadn't kept track. I didn't know that Hank Pym, was doing a handing off. Did that happen in the comics? All the comics when I was reading, it was all Hank Pym. I
read the first 2 issues of Ant-Man before I went to the theater, so that's all my extent of the Ant-Man comics knowledge.
So I think, to me, the most electric, amazing, magical scene in the entire movie was having old Agent Carter in the room with young Michael Douglas. That was utterly fantastic, and I believed it. And it wasn't like when they did a similar thing in Tron Legacy, to make Jeff Bridges look 30, he looked plastic as hell, and the animation was bad. It was perfect on this. I mean, it's like, I think if that level of technology would be used, it would be fascinating to do an entire Michael Douglas movie with him acting.
I was just thinking the same
thing.
Right?
And just it's just him always at that age, and he can, and we're now at that point where, I mean, that would be astonishing, and unfortunately, out of that whole movie, that's the part that I took away the most. That
was it, huh?
I want to watch. I mean, the problem was I oftentimes get lost in movies and forget that they're setting things up to help me with them later. But there was a lot that didn't really make sense, or that I thought was superfluous. Superfluous. You could tell that he cares about this ant named Anthony, and yet they don't have the ant do anything to endear him to us. So I'm like, oh, I guess he likes that ant a lot, and. It's this whole business of now these ants, their superpower is climbing. These ants are very painful, super painful, but we're not going to actually show you how painful they are. They pulled punches, man. Like, ants started fighting, and they didn't even squish and kill the ants. Like, literally, they couldn't hurt a flying ant. They had to swat at it, and you had to see it clearly healthily go whoa and fly off to the side.
That's the real world of ants, Brian.
And then they made a big deal about how this thing's a bazillion D on the pain scale, the Schmidt
scale, which I learned about on We Have Concerns.
So
I was like, hey, that's a real thing.
I read about it in a Wired article where it's like the literal recommendation on this one breed of insects is just lay down and scream. Because
that was the article that they were talking about on We Have Concerns. That's funny.
And so at any rate, here's a nutty idea. If you're telling a story in a movie format, instead of saying Schmidt scale 5 times, why don't you show me somebody getting bit and completely losing his crap and having it clearly be the most painful thing that's ever happened to him? Make me cringe. Make it painful for me to watch it, and then I'll know, oh, damn, don't mess with those ants.
I thought that was that was being set up. I thought that we would. I was a little disappointed that we didn't see those ants actually stinging anyone.
Yeah,
ever.
I mean, isn't that the freaking point?
But honestly, no. I didn't come to this movie to watch ants attack people. I came to this movie to watch Paul Rudd see if he could pull off the idea of being a very small superhero that believably punched people and defeated them. And I got it. I was like, yeah, I buy it. I buy that he has trained this up and figured out how to use this suit. I buy that the suit works that way, and that's all I wanted. The ant stuff was, to me, that was like that was a MacGuffin. That was like tech. I wasn't here for true ant behavior.
Yes, not that I'm saying I'm some kind of stickler for real ant. I'm not an ant purist.
You're not an aficionado?
No. An ant aficionado, is that what you said?
Yes,
Nice.
it was.
Yeah. I will say this. I really enjoyed I enjoyed seeing that senator dude from House of Cards as the villain.
Right.
With the yellow jacket stuff. But, a little bit weird that they just sat there and watched him try to, break Pym's code for 30 years. And then they're all like, oh, I guess they've finally done it. Maybe we should have, I don't know, fired him or bought him out or given him a severance package. Instead, we just let him work on it right under our faces for 30 years.
No, he controlled the company.
Yes.
He was doing it in spite of them, and they were watching to make sure he couldn't do it, but there wasn't much else they could do except fight him. And the only way to fight him would be to use the ant suit, so they kept that until their last option.
Right. Well, why didn't you just, use the ant suit and go sabotage his work on his dumb copycat suit?
Because then he would know that the ant suit was real, and you didn't believe that he was going to be able to figure it out.
Okay. Yeah, all right. I mean, in a world where the Avengers are lifting cities and set them down, I don't know that anyone would doubt that there's a Pym particle. Like, I don't know that that's yeah.
Well, he said that it wasn't real, and no one else could figure out how to use it. So I'll buy that personally. Right. I'll swallow that pill.
All right, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. It was fine. It was the first. It was my possibly, and I don't mean this as a bad thing. I loved all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. I'd place this one down around Thor: The Dark World area.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. This may be my least favorite Marvel movie also.
And
even
now,
though I enjoyed it more than you, it seems like, I can't think of any that I didn't like as much. And when I say that, I'm not counting Fantastic Four, X-Men. I'm talking about Marvel Studios.
Right. Correct.
What are we calling that these days? The Marvel Universe or the
MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe, yeah.
JC Calhoun in the chat says it was way better than Age of Ultron. I disagree.
I don't think it was way better than Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Age of Ultron had problems, but I'm holding that to the Avengers standard.
Right.
And it was still not as good as the original Avengers movie, better than Ant-Man. But I also didn't expect Ant-Man to be even as good as Age of Ultron.
You know what I would have preferred is, or what I think would have been neat is there's that moment when they establish he's got those discs that can make things big, and then maybe they could have established that, wow, this ant's big, this train is big. Oh, wait, I have a crazy last minute idea, and throw it at himself. And then because that's what happened in the comic books is eventually he realized, he could be Giant Man and, be just a giant and apparently kicking ass is a little bit easier that way.
I think you got to save that though. You don't blow that in the first movie.
Well, I mean, you could reveal that. I mean, that could be the arc. He finally gets the mastery of being small and then have that be the surprise. Like, oh crap, he could be big now too. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That would have been fun.
I think
or at
if
least
you're
a surprise.
I think if you're planning on making more than one movie, you hold that till later. I don't know.
Yeah.
I liked it because I liked seeing Falcon. I liked those interactions. They were funny. I liked the idea that Hank Pym stuck with it. And when I said I thought this was just going to be a passing of the torch, I'm just going by what I saw in the trailer. I was like, oh, the old guy's going to hand him the suit and then he becomes Ant-Man. Got it. And that's not what it was. It was, we need to recruit this guy from the outside because I am afraid of my daughter running into the same problem as my wife. Granted, the whole quantum thing is just BS and you can get held up on that. But I just wrote that off as, again, MacGuffin stuff. And I like the idea that he didn't want to risk his daughter and he was trying to hold her away from that risk, and that gave more interesting storyline to Hank Pym and made it the Hank Pym story less than the Paul Rudd character story, which I liked that as well. And there were nods to the original comics in there. You know, he talks about Tales of Astonishment, little things like that I enjoyed too.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, it's good.
I mean, definitely go see it. You know,
the only difference between our evaluations of this movie is it's good, and I'm like, it's good. It's like a half step.
Yeah, no, I got it. Just a lip twitch. That's the only difference between the two.
It's just like not even a full note between the upturn. All right, let's finish off with The Shield.
Yeah, dude. This is another one that I had intended to go along with the rides, but you're going to have to tell me what I missed this go around.
All right, this is episode 8, The Math of the Wrath, where Hyatt, the guy from Future Hawaii Five-0, for some reason just tells Vic, oh, by the way, Wims has just been yanking your chain. You're going to get laid off no matter what. You're going to get retired. Shane is running around pretending, and Vic's trying to avoid him. And really, honestly, this becomes the Gardotti story. Gardotti turns out to be the strongest of the strike team.
This is what I loved as you got to the end. And part of it is that, Lem being out of the picture, there's more opportunity to have these discussions. But Gardotti's always been the quietest of the four. He's the guy who got his face burnt that one time and kind of just goes with what everyone says. And we're starting to see that he plays a much, much bigger role now, because he's now Gardotti does not know about Shane, right?
Well, in this episode, he finds out about Shane, and it's Shane telling him I'm sorry, he knows about Shane. Shane tells Gardotti about shooting the guy in episode 1.
Oh, yeah, because he's been in the dark on that
right,
all the way
because he hasn't known
beginning.
about that because he wasn't in the room.
Yeah.
Thinking that he's turning Ronnie against Vic. And
right.
so what they're driving along, and Ronnie's like, they're talking about, and Vic's talking about, protecting your own and doing the hard things. And because there's this whole side story of Hernan losing contact with the feds, and they're trying to make contact with him. And did he really turn to the Salvadorans? Is he alive, and all of this stuff, which is a great story. Like, you just want to shove that to the side because there's this whole big overarching story, but they packed in this amazing, like, embedded agent story along the side, which, as I talk about all the time, that's what The Shield does brilliantly, is like its side stories would be compelling arcs for other series.
Yes.
And they're able to just, keep them as compelling side stories. But they're talking about that, and Ronnie's like, yeah, like when you shot, what's his name? And I can't remember the guy's name. But Terry, I think maybe?
Yeah, Terry.
When you shot Terry, and Vic looks at him and is like, yeah, Shane told me, you did what you needed to do. And it's so clear that Ronnie is like, don't think it's okay, not excusing you, know why you did it, etc. And all he says is like, you just should have trusted me and told me.
Yeah.
But he's not holding a grudge either. He's not like, and so I'm going to be all Shane drama now. Like, he is the most stable and strong of that entire team.
Yeah. And he's the one who I think, suspected what they were really about for a long time and is now hearing it and is unsurprised, smarter than they gave him credit for, and but also, like Lem, Lem got killed on the suspicion that he was going to rat out But Gardaki and Lem were equally as team players.
I've been saying Gardati, haven't I? Gardaki is right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, good.
And the other thing is that Shane Vendrell, knowing that he's in danger from Vic, has very wisely taken precautions to prevent Vic from exposing him, and now makes the very smart move of getting involved with the Armenian mob.
That's I was like, oh, what smart move did he do? And then I heard the words "getting involved with the Armenian mob."
Hey, remember when we ripped off your money train? Those are funny times, huh?
Crazy, right?
You didn't know about that?
So is he?
So he has approached the daughter of the head of the Armenian mob, and the head is dying in a hospital, and so he's like trying to bully her. But she's the kind of person who's like, I am just trying to follow in my father's footsteps. Oh, these two men were doing wrong things. I'll take care of it. And they're dead. She told some people to take care of it. And it's like, oh, yeah, there's way more to this woman than meets the eye.
Yeah, man. Okay, well, then I will, along with my I'm going to promise to stop breaking promises, Mr. Robot, and I'll join you on The Shield next week.
Yeah, man. I mean, The Shield, I love it when you've watched it because that's just fun to compare notes that way. But if you don't, it totally works. And you know what? The Spoilerin time, I try to tell people this, like, we watch what we watch, and then when it overlaps, we talk about it.
Right.
So, if one of us isn't enjoying a show, we're not warranting that we will stick with a show we hate all the time. Although sometimes we do.
Yeah. Right on, man. Well, I am going to see if anyone got a copy of that appearance I did on Penn & Teller's Fool Us and see if I can post it up on the Scam School channel.
I bet the internet did.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see it soon. Talk to you next time. Spoilerin time.
Bye, guys.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.